deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Thanks for joining me. Today, with the Super Bowl coming right around the corner, a week from yesterday. So we'll be watching the Seahawks play the New England Patriots in the 60th Super Bowl. I think that there's a lot of I think the Seattle Seahawks are playing really well right now. I mean, both teams are, but I think I said in the last week's episode, all my teams were falling out. My Jaguars obviously lost to the Bills, which is another team I played for, and then the Bills lose next week to the Broncos. So that and then now I guess the only team I have left really that I'd ever really consider following would be the Seattle Seahawks, because I did grow up in Washington State. So that's my third best team, I guess. So they're in the Super Bowl. So I'll root for the Seahawks. But I really do think that they're a really good team, and they've got a lot of passion this year, and they're showing it on the field. If you guys watch those games, these guys on defense are just every single one of the guys on the field, all 11 of them are in on the tackles. It's crazy how much energy and effort these guys are putting in. And that's really what it takes to win big games, in this league. And so today, how does this relate to health and all? Okay, well, I always talk about football. That's one thing you're going to know about me, that I'm very passionate about the sport, passionate about kicking. Obviously, I've been coaching for a long time, but I'm going to relate a lot of stuff today with regards to just, in general, it'll be the preparation. Like what are these guys doing, last week? What did they start doing last week? What are they doing this week? This week is very distracting, we'll say. I've never experienced a Super Bowl week as a player. I've been to two AFC Championship games as a player. We lost both of them, so I was one game away from the Super Bowl twice in my career. So I have an idea of what, because I remember, especially the last one, the 1999 season, we were 14-2 coming into the playoffs, and then we eventually lost to the Titans in the AFC Championship game. But prior to that, the Super Bowl was in Atlanta, so pretty close to Jacksonville. So we had a lot of people who were like, "Man, we're going to go if you guys go," obviously, and so we were trying to kind of figure out tickets and a little preemptive in that sense. Which again, that's the distraction I keep talking about. There's a lot of things that happen that take your focus off what it is you're doing. So I want to kind of reel back in and get back to reality and talk to you guys today a little bit about what kind of preparation, what goes through the mind of an NFL player about to play in a Super Bowl, the biggest game of their life, with millions and millions of people watching it worldwide. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, that I like I said, I came close a couple times, but I'd never had the opportunity. And in my mind, I'm like, man, that would be a tough situation. Now, of course, with kickers, it's tough anyways. But you're talking about in the Super Bowl. That's why I like, guys like Adam Vinatieri. He's got ice in his veins. He didn't care. He just went out there and kicked it like he normally does, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about. Not necessarily kick and so forth, but doing exactly what you've always done. That's really the answer to that, and a lot of stuff that I'll relate to everyday life kind of thing. So with that said, let's take a quick pause and hear from our sponsor real quick, and we get back into it. We'll talk a lot about Super Bowl preparation, what kind of things are different, if any, and how much pressure are you putting on yourself under certain circumstances, more or less, or there's a lot of things that play a role in your preparation for whatever it is you're doing, and this is a big one. So we'll talk about what those guys are going through, and we'll go from there. So here's a quick word from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
Welcome back. So with regards to just the preparation, you understand, getting in the NFL is a big deal, and I'm going to kind of start with me personally in the kicking position, and kind of expand from there as far as what I believe is the right thing to do, in my opinion. Of course, what I've seen, what I've witnessed, what I've heard, even from other guys who have played in the Super Bowl, and the distraction part is what I've heard a lot of from other teammates that I've had that have gone on with other teams and played in the Super Bowl. So just right out of the gate, when I coach kickers, and even when I was learning this stuff, and I didn't realize this at the time, but because when I'm learning these new things, it's different than what I've been used to. It's uncomfortable in a sense. And so my mind is saying, man, this is different. I don't know if I like it, and then I started seeing some results, and then I kind of gotten a keen to it and thought, well, I can do this. This is actually kind of cool. And I'm going to give this more attention. I'm going to work really hard and see if I can get this to be as perfect as I can. And, and in all honesty, what I've discovered over time, even in the NFL, I honestly don't know if this is my mindset, but eventually, I discovered it maybe one day. I don't even know when it was, but my point is that I discovered that the things that I was taught to kick a football the right way, the way I'm teaching everyone now, is a very simplified, I don't even say it's a version of kicking. It's a different way of kicking, of course. It is a way of kicking, obviously, but it's a very simplified process. And if you think about the best way to be as consistent as possible in anything you do in life, being consistent with your diet on a daily basis, your fitness routines, your everything, your mental aspects, your motivations, whatever it is you're doing on a daily basis. To simplify the process is easier to repeat. So going back to the kicking, when you get into specifics, when you've got to perform a certain skill and you're expecting a certain result from that skill to be exactly what you want it to be every single time, and that's putting pressure on yourself right there. So that's one thing that is great about this concept that I'm talking about, is the fact that preparing for getting this form and the fundamentals down was a process that I had to teach myself and relearn, basically reteach habits, make new habits, get rid of old ones, even though old ones still kind of creep in there. So you kind of have to watch out for those as well. But my major point I'm trying to make here is the fact that there's a certain process that gave me a great result. Okay. And when I look back at it, and I can't remember the exact day when I kind of had that aha moment where I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense, that the form we're doing right now and the form that I did and I was taught, now I'm teaching, it's actually really easy to repeat. Because that's really the name of the game with regards to what I'm referring to here. Now, with your diet and your exercise, that's not that complicated. It's just a matter of getting in the habit and doing it every day. And that's where I found that get over that hump, and you'll understand how easier it can be when you get over that hump and you just commit to it. It becomes part of your life. And so, with regards to kicking, I learned this fundamentals, this process of kicking a football high, straight, and far, and it was very successful. And so I thought, you know what? If this is an easier process to learn and repeat, not really learn, because learning part was a little bit difficult, but repeating it was a lot easier than the other ways of kicking, we'll say. Okay. So my point in saying this is that when you simplify the process that's very successful to begin with, that makes you more consistent at what you're doing, because it's a lot easier to repeat an easy process that gives you great results than it is to repeat a complicated process that might give you the same results. But again, when you go back to all the pieces all the more pieces that you'd have to learn in that process, you understand there's more room for error when you have more things you've got to master. And so what I'm telling you is, like, you have to simplify the process. You've got to, I don't like this word, you've got to dumb it down. I don't know why I don't like saying dumb, because it's just insultive, I guess, if that's a word. Insulting, we'll say. You have to dumb down the process. You have to make it as easy as possible. But in the process of doing that, that the things that you're doing are actually effective, because you start to see the results and you're like, wow, I didn't realize that trying less, as far as, less movement, motions, things that I think that I need to do, taking a lot of those away and just doing it this way is actually a lot easier to kick. I'm getting better results. And again, I'm going in the kicking sense here, but and with minimal effort compared to the other ways, because the other ways would require more effort because clearly you got to learn more and do more motions, more movements, and more mastering of those. But then also with regards to kicking, of course, most guys stop too much at the ball because they're turning to steer the football. Well, when you stop, you have to kick it harder with your leg because you sacrifice your body and forward momentum. I could bore you to death with all that. But my point is, again, I say that a lot, don't I? My point is, because I do ramble, I get off track a little bit, but I'm trying to really, really give you a visual of what I'm talking about. And so going back to the whole, Super Bowl preparation last week, the first thing I know these guys did, the teams did, they went in and they studied film on all the teams they could possibly be playing. Well, the two prior to, figuring out who they're actually going to play. I can't remember who played first last week. But my point is that when you start to, prepare for a huge game like this, the biggest mistake I believe that most people would make was like, oh my gosh, I got to spend this much time doing this. I got to go into here. I got to really make sure my ankles really be feeling good. I got to, get extra rehab. I got to watch extra film. The film part is good, over preparing, or I won't even put it that way, extra preparing. You're preparing extra, more than you typically would, I guess. No, not because you do have 2 weeks to do it, but also because this is a very important game. So watching the film on your opponents, if that's your position, you got to know what your opponent's doing and studying that and getting an idea of what that opponent's going to do, what that defense is going to do, what that offense is going to do. That's great. Okay. That you can't, I don't think you can over prepare in that sense. What you can over prepare with is your own plays. I've experienced this on special teams before, and I've even heard some of my teammates even say the same thing. We should have never run that play. We weren't ready for that. We tried to throw that in this week. It was like maybe a throwback or something on a kickoff return that we should not have done. Or I can get any more specific with regards to me kicking off. Like we'd have all these movements on kickoff coverage to mess up the defense or the return team, to maybe screw them up a little bit. But in the long run, it actually screwed us up. Okay, so when you over prepare and you put people in positions, because I think we're going to put Jimmy Smith on the right side this week because he needs to run fat. We're going to kick it to the right and he needs to be the first one down there. Well, they might have some stud up there that's going to, or maybe double team and whatever the case may be. But there's always that's the difference in the NFL. It's like who prepares better and who's playing better that day. It's a very, very fine line between who wins games and who doesn't. It's all about a lot about preparation as well. Not just game preparation, each game preparation, the whole entire season preparation. There's a lot that goes into that too. But you can over prepare, you can overthink, you can second guess yourself. You can do all these things. But my point is, when you prepare, you just, and again with kicking, I'll go back to kicking again like I always do. But I tell people, and especially kickers, young kickers, say, listen, why would you treat the game-winning kick you're about to attempt any different than the first field goal that you had during the game? Were you, maybe nervous because this is the first kick, but you didn't think it's the game-winning kick, so you didn't put that much effort into really trying to make it, which actually screws people up, in my opinion, with kickers especially, when you try too hard. And that's really the point I'm making is in situations where it matters more, kickers try too hard because they don't want to miss. Well, guess what they do when they try too hard? They do things that they don't normally do. They try harder. They swing a little harder. They might, try to steer it even more. There's all kinds of different things that these kickers would do. And it all comes down to the intention. The intention is to make the kick to win the game. Well, if you look back, the first field goal of the game, that was a very important kick that you made because it put you in the position to be in this position now. So you can't look at it any different. That's what these guys should be doing. Hopefully they're, coaches, these guys know a lot. I mean, they're incredibly intelligent people, been around the game a long time. They know how to prepare their teams. And the players, the veterans that have been around a while, they understand. And I'm sure they're in their meetings talking to the players. They're probably having player only meetings now. And I'm sure, obviously the team meetings and coaches are going to be in there, all that. But I'm sure a time or two during the next couple of last week and maybe this week or of course, that you'll find some team leaders calling team only, player only meetings. Like, listen, we don't need the coaches in here because it's us. We want to, because guys listen to other guys a lot more, in detail. Yes, coaches are coaches. They're our boss basically. But when it comes to another human being that's doing the same thing you're doing, another somebody that is a leader, somebody that's really prideful and loves you and really a teammate and wants you to succeed, those are the guys that are going to step up and help the preparation for these guys. So I kind of want to relate all of this stuff. Now, again, real quick, thinking about the distractions, of course, because that's what you got to watch out for. You want to prepare in the NFL for a Super Bowl. You don't want to over prepare. You want to make sure you've got everything covered that you want to cover. You can't get too detailed. You can't try to out scheme yourself, which I've experienced before, witnessed it firsthand myself on my teams that I've been on, and it happens. You prepare too much. So immediately when the teams were announced as far as who's playing in the Super Bowl, I thought to myself, now if I were them, I would just not float, but prepare, but don't over prepare. Don't think of this as the end of the world if you lose the game. Yes, it's a big game. I understand that, but with regards to just understanding what your goal is. Your goal is to win a game. Your goal was to win a game last week too. Did you prepare for that one? What was your mindset going into that one? Well, it was important. It made you, it got you to the Super Bowl. Well, you just keep going backwards and think about the first game of the year. Like, are you like over preparing for that one? Probably not. I mean, it's a game you're preparing for it. Yeah, clearly we all want to win these games, but that's really kind of the thing in everyday life, with regards to just your mentality with your fitness and your exercise, your mentality of just your daily routine. I think people get overwhelmed when they complicate stuff. And I think people complicate stuff because they think they have to. And I'm here to tell you, mentally and physically, you don't need to do as much as you think you need to do. I think that, when I've said this many times, we are so much more capable of what we think we are, but that doesn't mean we have to try harder to achieve those things. Those are things that that come with time and come with effort that you never really expect. I never thought I could play in the NFL. That's what I'm saying. It's a prime example. I didn't, but here's the deal. Here's the difference. I didn't try to play in the NFL. I tried to be as good as I could be as a kicker. And at whatever level that got me to, I had to be okay with, because I know my body, my lack of athletic ability and my lack of size and strength. I didn't think that I could just muscle the football and be as good as these other athletes out there. They're just incredible athletes that are in the NFL as kickers. Even these days, of course, they're even better than we were back in the day. But that wasn't my intention, is to get to the NFL. Now, there was a period of time where I thought, well, God, I could actually make it. And that was satisfying, of course, when I made it. I'm like, yeah, I made a goal here. Because at that point, when I knew that when I'm trying out in the NFL, clearly I'm trying to make the NFL at that point. But getting to the position where I'm actually getting NFL workouts, I really wasn't expecting that. But I got good at what I did. And so when you think of everything that you do in your life, if you just relax and take it day by day, I was trying to think of an example, something smaller, like hour by hour, like, whatever it is, a project you're working on, don't try to, master it, or, you want to do a good job on it and you want to do your best on it. But when you overwhelm yourself and you try really hard to make it the best you possibly, and it's striving too hard for perfection is what I think what gets people in trouble. When you try too hard to do things, you're easily discouraged if things don't go your way. But if you just take it day by day, week by week, game by game, kick by kick, whatever the case may be, you'll understand that if you just are consistent with your process of preparation and not putting too much emphasis on that preparation based on what the consequence is at the end of the results, as far as the the field goal or the game or the project that you're finishing, or your diet, your fitness goals, whatever they may be, if you try too hard to achieve them, you might find yourself in some trouble. Clearly, what I mean by that is not like negative trouble. Just you'll take some back seats to things. You'll have to you might get hurt. Whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that will make set back a little bit. You'll have some setbacks when you try too hard and you do things. And again, I'm a victim of that as well. How many guys out there? I'm one of them. we'll get something, some sort of project from IKEA, or you know where I'm going with this. When I say IKEA, you know exactly where I'm going with it. Anything you get, do you read the directions? Probably not. And if you do, you maybe glance at them like, oh, okay, I got the pieces. Okay, let's go. And you throw the thing down and you just go for it. How many times have you discovered that you went a step further when you forgot one step that you had to, and you have to take down everything you just put together to this one piece before you can redo the other ones again? So you just stepped back. You've went negative in your progress, right? We don't want to go negative or backwards in our progress. And that's what happens if you get yourself caught up into thinking too far ahead. That's another thing. That's another reason why I don't like to set goals, like long-term goals. Yeah, little intermediate goals here and there are fine. But when you think of a long-term goal, you can think of something you might want to do, but you got to put it way back here and think, okay, well, to get there, I've got to just take this road and be calm about this. I can't rush into it and try to get it now today. And that's another thing I have issues with young kids. You know, there's a little bit of an entitlement these days with these kids that, you know, want to get 10 yards on their kickoff today. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. You're probably going to take away 5 yards from your kickoff if you really want to get the deep down nitty gritty with what I'm talking about with the form. Because with the stuff that I teach, you actually do take a few steps backwards before you actually progress. And that is, I think that's really normal in a lot of everyday life sort of things, depending on what it is, of course. But I think that you get discouraged if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying so hard to achieve something, and that you try so hard that you've missed a step, or you skipped a step because you're in such a hurry to get there. That can't happen in your nutrition, your diet. That can't definitely happen in your workouts if you're trying to be, strong man or whatever. You're entering a competition, like you wake up one day, I'm going to be a strongman competitor. You're not going to go in the weight room and put 400 pounds on the bench today if you can't even bench 135 pounds or whatever the case may be. You clearly know that it's going to take time to build up to that 400 pounds. Well, think of everything that you do in your daily life. You have to have some patience and knowing what the intention is, the long-term intention is your goal, we'll say. But in order for you to achieve that, there's certain steps that need to be taken in certain orders. And if you mess them up, you're not going to get the same results in the long run. And that's where I think people, like the hump I keep talking about. I've talked about this in previous episodes many times, where people give up on their diet. First of the year, January 1st, New Year's resolutions. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to, make my diet better. I'm going to be much better with my food, my intake. I'm going to be really responsible. And I want to lose weight. I want to get, in shape. I want to feel good and look good. Well, 2-3 weeks into it, if you don't see any sort of result, and here's the God's honest truth. How often do you weigh yourself when you're trying to lose weight or get in shape or whatever the case may be? You weigh yourself, you gauge it by your weight. Well, guess what? If you're in the weight room and you're eating a bunch of protein and you're doing all the right things for 2 or 3 weeks into this from your New Year's resolution, okay, 3 weeks into it, you're probably going to be heavier, because you're going to start gaining some muscle, especially if you're eating protein after working out pretty heavy, right? You're going to start gaining some muscle. Well, guess what? Muscle weighs more than fat. You won't start losing fat until later on. And so I think you get misled, like, this isn't working. I'm actually getting heavier. Well, you can't rely on the scale to make you feel better about yourself. That's one huge mistake that a lot of people do, especially at the beginning of any sort of training or diet routine that they've changed up. They expect too much too early. Okay, so going back to that patience, you have to have patience and understanding of what it is that it's going to take for you to achieve those goals, whatever it is you're looking to achieve. And so, going back to the Super Bowl preparation, what are these guys doing? Well, I can promise you, yes, they're in their meetings, they're studying film. Coaches are probably a little uptight, but I think now, again, going to the distractions, there are, you got the Radio Row where they have to do all the interviews. They've got press conferences. They've got events and things like that they're required to do by the NFL. Those are distractions. And if you get your mind so caught up into Super Bowl week, seeing all these people having fun, knowing that you've got this game coming up and you're trying to have fun too, you're not preparing yourself very well. So again, Here's a classic example. I just thought of this. I haven't mentioned this one ever yet in any of these podcasts, but people say to me, like, they have a question, like, how do you deal with those timeouts? When teams call a timeout, how does that affect you? I'm like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but the only thing it really that makes it suck is that it just ruins the routine. Okay, so what I mean by that is there's a certain routine. Okay, I'm a kicker. I see us on second down. We're second and long. I see, okay, third and long now. Okay, well, crap. Okay, if we don't get at least 10 yards here, or 13 or 14 yards, I know I'm going in for the most part, unless our coach wants to go for it, fourth and one. But more than likely, I'm going in. So I've done some warm up kicks already. I'm ready to hear the words field goal, because that's what I told my coaches, like, call field goal. And clearly, they're, field goal. They're telling everyone we're kicking a field goal now. Okay, that's the routine. That's the words I hear. I run on the field. There's a certain process. I put my foot down. Brian Bark, Brian Mormon, whoever's my holder will put his hand down. I do my steps. We'll look up at the play clock every once in a while, make sure we're still in the time to get the play off. And then snap comes, and I kick the ball, and then I repeat the next time. Now, when they call timeout, that just screws that process up. So guess what I do? When a team calls a timeout, when I'm out on the field, whether it's right before a kick or not, I run back to the sideline. I don't really have time to kick another ball. I don't really need to. I don't want to. I'll take a little swig of water. I'll stretch a little bit. And I've told my coach, I've prepared him for this. I say, Coach, Larry, call field goal again, just for me, because the field goal team's already out there. I'm the only one that's not. Just say field goal, field goal, field goal. Say that again, just like you always do. Okay, that's good. I can do that. And that puts me in my routine again. So I run on the field. It's a little different because the guy's already out there. But my point is, it just gets me back in the routine. Some other kickers will stay out there and they'll inspect the field and check the wind and all that. That's mumbo jumbo. You don't typically have time. And that's, again, I think that's overthinking. I think that is something that you don't get the time to do anyways. On a normal kick, you're not going to be out there throwing grass out and, making sure there's a play clock running. You got to get that kickoff. So you don't have the time to do those kind of things. So how does that relate to regular life? Again, that's the over preparing part. Like, you're doing more than you probably should. And here's the thing is I think that people believe in order to achieve success in whatever it is that they're looking for, and whatever project it is, whatever they're looking for. If you're looking for success, I think that people think that there's a requirement to have a lot of things that you have to do to achieve those great successes. They put too much pressure on themselves, thinking they've got to do all of this work and all these little things and do them perfectly in order for the end result to be what they want it to be. And I think that's misleading. Now, I'm not telling you just to be lazy and complacent and all that. I'm saying, obviously, know what you're doing. Obviously, if you have a process, a system that is successful through time, that's been tested, whatever. Clearly, with ProForm, with the form that I use, it's been tested. I was the dummy. I was really the first guy that Jim Gaetano had in the NFL as a kicker. And this is his form. And so I was the guinea pig, and I'm good. I'm glad that I did listen, because, again, you're having somebody else tell you things that you're really not really buying into yet until you see results. Well, again, I told you, you're going to take a couple steps backwards before you go forward with the form and things that I'm going to teach you. And so you have to understand that you're going to fail a little bit at first. It's okay. Expect it. I expect it all the time. Every kid that I work, I get used to missing right as a right-footed kicker. And sometimes it's hard for these guys. They want to go on the field and kick extra point or kick, field goals, and they want to make the kicks, and instead of doing what I'm saying, get used to missing right. Because if you do these things properly, the first things that you're going to notice, the balls are going to go to the right a little bit. Now, we can correct that with some other stuff. Now, I'm boring you with the field goal stuff again, but my point is really just to going back to what I said earlier, is simplifying the process, because, again, whatever process that is you're doing, could be diet, could be exercise, whatever the process is, if you simplify it and don't make it a big deal. That's one thing too, is that, when you're, the diet, I just don't want to eat this today. Like, well, just eat it. Embrace the suck. Okay. You're going to have periods of time where they're going to be a little challenging. Okay. That's the separator. Those who can embrace the suck and know that we're going to have the sun will rise tomorrow and everything's going to be okay. You will, first off, you'll surprise yourself. Like, man, you know what? You look back at yesterday, that decision you made yesterday, and and you actually went forward with it. And you're like, oh, okay, I decided to eat that whatever I was going to eat, and I know I didn't like it. Well, you woke up today just fine. You probably feel pretty good. You look back like, I'm actually glad I ate that because I did it. I actually did. And again, the whole concept of accomplishment comes into your life too at that time. That's actually a really good point. That it just kind of is a standard, really. And if you think about, these people who are down on themselves about their diet, oh, I'm overweight, I'm out of shape, this and that. Well, just know that when you get back in shape, how good you're going to feel about yourself because you've accomplished that. But the road it's going to take for you to accomplish that is not going to be great. But if you're disciplined, if you're passionate, if you're patient, if you understand it's a process, and then you simplify that, make it easy, don't get all bent out of shape about things. And again, when you get into the physical aspects, that's when you have to, simplify the process a little bit more in detail with regards to physical movements and how you're doing these things. But it's a goal in everyday life. I think that everybody can use this kind of advice when it comes to important things. The Super Bowl, everybody is watching you. I can guarantee any athlete out there, kicker, quarterback, receiver, if they are so ingrained in the fact that millions of people are worldwide are watching them, as that ball is thrown, as they're, oh my gosh, how many people are watching? And the ball's going to fall right out of their hands. Okay. You wouldn't do that in a normal game. Yeah, there's still probably millions of people, not nearly as much people watching, but who cares? You can't look at stuff like that. Couldn't tell you how many. I don't even know. When I'm in a game, I'm just me and the ball, and me, the holder, the snapper. It's just the three of us. I could care less what these other guys are doing because that's not part of my job. Okay. And so that's where I think that, you have to have that discipline and the knowledge to understand what's the best way of doing things. And I think it starts with taking a lot of pressure off yourself by just simplifying the process, relying on something that's very successful, it's worked before. Even if you have a nutrition coach or an exercise coach or a fitness coach of some sort, any kicker coach, quarterback coach, receiver coach, whatever. These people have the knowledge, and they're telling you a process to do. Well, trust them. Okay. Now, of course, you can get involved with people that don't give you the right advice. That's always an option, not a great option, and it's not your fault. As long as you do some due diligence on them and understand where they're coming from and their credentials and all that. So understand you find that process, you trust that process, and you move forward with it. But you got to be patient. You got to have, got to be complacent, or can't be complacent. You got to be, dedicated, passionate about it. And you've got to find ways to get through these things in a way that don't make them complicated. Once you complicate things, it's easier to quit. When it becomes complicated, and you're just like, oh man, not again. And again, you've got that lack of discipline about it. When those things start to creep in, you better buck up and snap out of it, or your whole process is done. So hang in there. Just know that, there's always that success, the great feeling of having success, the feeling of accomplishment is one of the best feelings in the world. Whether it's for yourself or anybody else. How often do you feel great about doing things for other people? Okay. Think of it that way. If it makes you feel really good, you got all the money in the world, if it's in your heart to help people financially, it makes you feel good because you've helped somebody, right? Well, that same person might have a hard time helping themselves. Maybe that same person with gobs of money handing them out to people that need it, maybe that person's overweight and doesn't feel good about themselves because they've let themselves down. They'll take care of you guys. They'll take care of everyone else that needs the money, but they won't take care of themselves. That's where, you're not going to be around long enough to help others if you're not healthy, and you get unhealthy and have to, get into, a situation, that could be deadly, whatever the case may be, So understand the best part about this is the accomplishments as far as the, understanding the preparation and getting to knowledge and know what it is you're striving for, what you want to, achieve, and know that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and know that, when you are patient about things and you have a process, you trust it, and you just stay calm and do the right things, that good things will happen. So With that said, we got a Super Bowl coming up next Monday night. So I'm sure. I'm sorry, next Sunday night. I was going to say I'll see you next Monday night. Not gonna cancel on you. So we'll probably talk about the Super Bowl on Monday night, next Monday night for next episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. But we'll have another subject. We'll talk a little football, but I'll get into more of the nutritional side. Maybe you have a guest. I don't know. We're gonna talk about that as well. So with that said, you guys have an awesome evening, and I love you all. And we'll see you next Monday night on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.